Alrighty, we're live. Hello, dear Starshines. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of the Lunchtime Chats. I'll give everybody a minute to get on board. Um, I'll go ahead and welcome for those of you who are new listening to the recording. My name is Christina, and I'm an consciousness acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those topics and issues that are significant for us starseeds, way showers, and new paradigm visionaries. We have capacities, we have abilities that are not embraced by our larger human family, and therefore, the way we see things or the way we experience things are very rarely addressed at the level that we're engaged. So I'm here to do to the best of my ability to provide a liberated perspective to some of these more challenging pieces that we're experiencing. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's see. As you guys hop on board, go ahead, say hello. Let me know you're here. It's always nice to connect with you guys. Um, Happy Thanksgiving for those of you who are in the U.S. And what I found out is that there's people that are not from the U.S. that are celebrating Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. You guys know that I do these chats every year, and I'm always talking on Thanksgiving because that's the Thursday, the last Thursday of November usually. So this is a time of getting together with people whose company you love and appreciate, if you're lucky. And for others, maybe it's time to get together with family. Maybe you love and appreciate your family, maybe not. I think there's some jury out, and for those of us who are star seeds born to families, very often we end up choosing to come into a family that is we're black sheep from, right? Uh, and it's an interesting statement, choosing to come in. I would be very curious to hear from you guys listening live or the recording. Hey, Bev, good to see you. Do you guys resonate with that idea that you choose to come in? And not only are you choosing to come in, are you choosing the family that you were born to? I'd be very curious to hear your guys' feedback, like what resonates or doesn't resonate for you around that sort of thing. Um, we were talking about this last night about this idea of choosing. I know from my own recollection that coming into this reality, it was not a congruent yes coming into this reality. It's like I knew I was coming into this reality, but there was a very significant aspect of me that was saying, hell no, not again. I don't want to come through again. And because of that, hell no, there was a lot of difficulties bringing me into this world. And those difficulties look different, of course, for different folks. Some people, maybe their mothers had a difficult pregnancy. Maybe there was a very difficult process of childbirth. Maybe the conception process was hard. Maybe what I mean. There was challenges with just the very gestation, growing in the mother, growing in your mom, and then being born. My excuse me. I'm going to pause right there, take a sip. I know my oldest daughter was not necessarily congruent about coming, and there was a really difficult time with her birth. We both almost died in that process. So, these kinds of things translate when these nesting dolls, these unseen realms, what is happening, the attitudes, the beliefs, the different structures in these unseen realms have a very strong influence on how things happen here in the 3D. So if we're not congruent about coming into this reality, then that's going to come through in how we even show up here in this reality, right? So it's an interesting idea to say we choose to be here. We choose our family. Who's doing the choosing? Who's deciding? What part of us is deciding? And who are we deciding with? Is it the Pachamama? Is it the different overlords of some of these nesting dolls that are enveloping the dream of the mother? I'm curious to hear from you guys what resonates with you around that. And it's important that you do share, because it's significant for us to see how other like-minded people perceive these things. How do other starseeds see how this works? How do other visionaries relate to this idea? Because this is a consensus reality, which means that there's no one truth, there's no one reality. This is many, many, many ideas coming together in a soup, so to speak, and we experience the soup. And because our reality is nested within all these unseen nesting dolls of frequencies, you know, such as the polarity matrix, right? The good, bad, the right or wrong, negative, positive, this kind of thing. Any magnetizing strongly to any polarity, any belief, any idea anchors you to the matrix of that's holding that idea in place. So maybe there's a nesting doll in there where you believe it's a prison planet, right? And you have a very strong feeling about that. And then you attract teachings that show you that experience once you're in a biosuit in this reality. Now you're even more strongly invested in that. And the thing is, when we're strongly invested into something, we give our energy to it. Remember the practice that we had, for those of you guys caught the chats over the past couple weeks, the more invested you are into something, the more you give energy to it. And unless you know to pull your energy back to you, the energy you give to these different grids stays there. And the idea that was planted with me last night in my conversation with dear sister Jackie here, is that, we invest into different belief systems, into different ideas about reality that really are these grids of planted awareness or planted belief systems and stuff like this. If we're not calling that energy back, even when we leave these biosuits, sorry, this is going to be a little loud. There's construction nearby and the semis go by. Actually, it's quite ironic because this is a very quiet neighborhood, except for these trucks that go by. Anyway, and when you decide to leave this biosuit, leave this existence, and you go into the afterlife, whatever that is for you, according to your belief system, so on and so forth, if you don't pull your energy out of those grids, they're still existing within the grids that are around this dream of the mother, that are influencing our experience of the dream of the mother. And what that translates as, we don't fully cross over beyond this reality. Okay. So we were talking about this last night, and she was giving some examples of some thoughts that she was introduced to by a dear sister Starshine. I already don't remember her name, Lalita. Yeah. Okay, Lalita. But the idea that was in her mind was about legacies, financial legacies, energetic legacies. And I don't know if you guys know this, but once you get older, you start no longer looking for, purpose isn't really what's so important. It's what's important is the kind of legacy you leave for your children, what kind of legacy you leave for your family, stuff like this, for humanity. Like, what have you done to contribute to the human experience? Okay. So, but those sorts of things that we invest our life force energy into is us giving energy into a matrix. So when it does come time for us to pass, whether it be through illness or sudden event or whatever, that energy is invested, and and we and it stays. That energy stays, And then so when we pass on, we're not completely free, completely liberated, and we stay because of this energetic entanglement, reincarnating into these matrices. Okay. Now, the ancients talk about this. For example, the scales. I believe it's the scales of Mat, having your heart as light as a feather. You when you go through the engineered life review process, if you are light as a feather, if your heart is light as a feather, you continue to move on beyond the incarnational cycles of this particular realm. And then, the Buddha also talks about this, talks about it's not about having good karma or bad karma, it's about having zero karma. And that is the key to transcending, ascending beyond this reality. And they go on to elaborate even further with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, except they actually talk about how to navigate the life review, where even if there is karma, even if there is momentum, even if there is parts of you invested in these different matrices, they teach about how to go through the life review in a way that liberates you, the key to liberating yourself, versus being remaining attached to something, and then as soon as that attachment is recognized and acknowledged, you come back and reincarnate again. So there are teachings on this planet that talk about this matrix, the entanglement with these matrices. And this is a really good time to go into this because we're accelerating very quickly. Our reality is getting bombarded with lots and lots of life force energy, with lots of light codes. And these light codes are meant to activate our DNA to be fully free and dancing with, I'm going to say, in harmony, in sympathetic rhythm with the cosmos. Okay. And when our DNA is activated like that and is in sympathetic harmony with the cosmos, we can experience this realm as something that we are simply passing through, as dear Rumi would say. So if you think about this reality and you being here, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like it's a prison planet? Do you feel like you're super invested and you want to keep coming back? Do you feel like, you want this to be your last time around? And really, whatever you feel really strongly about, that is what you need to untangle yourself from. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but on a soul level, your soul is helping you do this. That's why your soul is having you experience certain things. There's the trajectory that your soul has intended in this incarnation, and then there's the trajectory that your ego driver has intends through this incarnation. And when they're not in congruency with each other, then you're pretty much solidifying the reality that you're going to come back again. Okay, so this is another angle of looking at why we do the work that we do, why we're doing the personal healing work that we do. It's not just to have a happy life, it's to be liberated. That's the big thing. Liberated. Liberation means this matrix is not in command of you anymore. It's not in command of your energy. You are in command of your energy. You are the one that takes full responsibility on what you do and why you do it. Okay? So you're not a slave to the job. You're not a slave to a relationship. You're not a slave to your family. You see what I mean? You're not obligated to do anything that's not in your heart and soul to do. And when you hear to say this out loud, a lot of people would hear that and be like, well, that's completely selfish. but that's the matrix talking. That's the matrix talking. Because when you are living completely liberated in a collective ocean that we're in, that reality, that DNA dance has a rhythm, has a frequency that transmits through the ocean of this reality, and it's going to wake people up. And that is a massive service that one can do for humanity, is wake people up from their enslavement. Okay? It's not enough to wake people up to being enslaved. you also need to wake them up with the keys of getting out of it. You see? And this is the deception of the matrix on many, many layers. It's like, okay, so some people can't stay in the program. So the ones that can't stay in the program because they have some kind of inkling, their DNA dance is nudging and they need to accommodate that next level of DNA dance, in comes the next level of inception, which is, yes, matter of fact, you are a slave. Matter of fact, it's these beings that this and this and this, and they do that and that. So, okay, you get validated that you're enslaved. You get validated that there's these unseen beings that are having influence on us. You get validated that these unseen beings, even though they don't have power in this reality, they have a lot of power in this reality because humans don't exercise their own power in this reality. They let these other beings influence them and how they create things with their thoughts and feelings, right? And then you're hopeless. And now you have to work through that hopelessness. How do you reclaim your power in a soup that looks like it's hopeless? Because no one wants to wake up to the fact that there's these beings called archons doing what they're doing. No one wants to admit that there's ETs and interdimensional interplay. Well, until now. I mean, now that we're coming into a time of waking up, there's more. They're a lot more willing to accept that. But what's beyond that? Okay, you realize, oh, wait a minute, it all begins and ends with me. I am the one that's investing into my victim story. I am the one that is investing into my whatever story. Okay, then you have to face yourself. How do I and why do I invest in that? You see? And this is the magic key to the whole thing. This is, once you get past that point of, that inception that you're enslaved and it's hopeless, once you get past that, then you got to really own yourself on such a deep level that it takes the rest of your life to invest in. Okay, because there's so many layers to it. And this is why I'm a huge proponent, and everybody in Light Body would testify to this, right? We're huge proponents for ancestral healing, ancestral clearing. Okay, that's because you can radically accelerate the liberation to liberate yourself from the deep subconscious programming that you've inherited from your elders. You can radically accelerate your liberation from that by cleaning up their unresolved stuff. And if you guys really look deep into the family stories, if that's available to you, many of you will realize that you're reenacting life scenarios that ancestors of yours have had, you know. Um, and this is the problem with us losing our history, because when you don't know who your great grandparents are and the kinds of trials and tribulations that they went through and the different stories and narratives that were in their lives, you don't even get the chance to recognize that, oh my God, I'm reliving the story of my great grandfather. I'm reliving the story of my great uncle. Right? Um, and and this is, and if we did have these stories, we would see how we are repeating them. You know, my so when I was younger, let's see, monarchy time, teenage time, I was very hot-headed. I was patient until I wasn't. So if you're an animal, I had infinite patience with you. I loved you and it was great, right? But if you were a human and I found you annoying, it was like my fuse was very short. And I didn't like bullies. And as a result of that, I became really aggressive towards people who I thought were bullying me, right? And so I remember my grandmother telling me that I really needed to get a handle on my temper, and that temper was going to cause me problems in life. And then I had some other life situations reflect to me that my temper was really not going to get me; it was going to cause trouble. So fast forward decades later, my uncle goes through a period in his life where he starts researching the genealogy of that side of the family. This is my mother's side of the family. And wouldn't you know it, that I had an ancestor coming from Scotland, landing in Virginia, who had a reputation for being hot-headed. And his temper got to brought him to such a place, he had to flee for his life because he created vendettas. People became very upset with him, and he had to flee into the mountains, which of course is what led to the settling of the rest of the family, because he goes deep into Appalachia, and is part of finding one of the first, or beginning one of the first Presbyterian churches back in the day, so this was a story that was lost in antiquity, and of course he found God, right, and he transformed his life in the way that he transformed it, but he had to ruin his life with his temper in order to create a new life, in order to get forced to create a new life. Okay, so I'm hearing this story however many generations later, and for some reason I'm really resonating with this guy having this temper, and because I just didn't have patience for people who were unkind, or who were bullies. It's like I just didn't have tolerance for that. And if you think about the Scots and what they went through with the UK, with the British, there was massive oppression, and they were really, really, really not treated well for many generations, and then they would get an opportunity to flee into Ireland, and then that also became a whole oppressive story, because you have the Orange Irish against the Green Irish. This is the Protestant against the Catholics, and that was a huge conflict. And then they come over to this country, and again more conflict. So we need to understand these stories so we can recognize what's unresolved in our ancestries, so we can realize that what the life that we're living right now is not actually our lives. It's the unresolved crap from our ancestors. It's the unresolved energy that our ancestors invested their life force into, So it's hugely liberating to recognize that the trials and tribulations that you have in this life didn't start with you. It's not you. Yes, you were born into this family, but what you're working through is not yours necessarily. It's what your family has given to you. It's it's the unresolved stuff, like I said. And this is where something like death rites comes in, because you can unravel an entire lifetime of baggage, of trauma from an ancestor in one setting, which is a gift beyond anything, beyond imagination. Okay, because in the death rites process, you are unraveling all of that energy they gave into these matrices. You're unraveling all those attachments. So if it's a religious matrix, if it's an abusive matrix, it's a war matrix, it's this, or whatever, you unravel all that energy investment, unravel all that trauma, unravel all of the thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs that brought them to invest so much into these matrices. You're liberating your ancestors, and therefore you're liberating yourself. And if you have kids, you're liberating your children and your grandchildren. So when they get born into this matrix, they don't have to resolve your crap or your grandparents' crap or whatever. They get to truly just live the life that they're here to live. You see? And then we can start experiencing this realm as the miracle, beautiful place that it is. So we have all these matrices, nesting dolls of unseen realities, and forming this reality. And there's a lot of unseen matrices implanted within this reality that keep us in this loop. And that's why beings feel like this is a prison planet. Now, ultimately, with the most outer nesting doll of who we are, we're part of the people that created the matrices in the first place. But we have to first reunite with that aspect of ourselves in order to have that realization. If we're not reunited with that aspect of ourselves, we're not going to have that realization. It's only going to be an idea. It's not going to be a living, breathing truth within your body. And the thing is, once these things become a living, breathing truth within your body, your DNA dance can activate and be that much more harmonic, with the rhythms of the cosmos, okay, with the heartbeat of the mother. The more rhythmically in tune we are with the heartbeat of the mother, the freer we are, the more connected we are, the more empowered we are. We can become the true artists of our lives versus the the black sheep that comes and speaks the truth that no one wants to hear, that he spends so much of their life healing their ancestral trauma. They somatic psychology has come so far these days, and studies have shown that PTSD is inherited. It's inherited. So even if you were born into a life where you didn't have war, you didn't have bombs getting dropped on you, but your parents did, your grandparents did, you're inheriting their subconscious PTSD, which impacts your DNA dance, which limits your consciousness. You see what I mean? So if we, as a society, as a collective, just start re-embracing death rites, re-embracing what the process of the dying is, we can liberate ourselves within a single generation. We can truly do this. Hey, Tony, happy Thanksgiving. Okay, it's buffering pretty badly. Is it buffering badly for you too, Bev? Let me know. Let me know if it's not coming in so well. I'm trying to see where the signal is at. The signal seems okay, but I'm going to back up closer to the Wi-Fi, and we'll see if it gets any better. Okay, it's not buffering for you. Okay. All right, I'm still going to get a little closer to the Wi-Fi. All righty, here we are. All right, so where was I at? Oh, yeah. Unraveling ancestral patterns. Right. So key components to unraveling ancestral patterns: compassion, forgiveness, And one of the beautiful things that we can do is, maintain an ancestral altar. Now, some altars, they can be in some place in your home, or they can be a bundle that you pull out, So if you don't have a place in your home where you can have this open altar, you can have a bundle. And what you can do with this bundle is that you can reunite alienated or estranged family relationships. Okay, so say your there was a falling out between your parents. Maybe your parents are divorced and they bitterly, they have bitterness towards each other, right? And they'll never spend another holiday together again. This is just an example, right? And then they pass. So, of course, I would highly recommend doing death rites for them both to unravel this. But then what you can start doing is you can have them over time, bring them into an ancestral altar and start bringing their spirits into the same space where there's peace, where there's tranquility, where there's connection. So now their energies, from the matrix, can come and be reconnected again, can have peace and tranquility again. And that will translate energetically to you, your DNA dance, to your bones, to your frequency. There was a time, let's see when was this? Was in the spring. I learned I worked with a dear brother Starshine named Haru, and it was with Hape medicine. And he taught us a medicine song. It was a song of peace. It was the Hape Peace song, I believe is what he called it. So I'm sitting in meditation with the Hape medicine, and I start singing the song because I really wanted to learn the song because there was something about it that really resonated for me. So I sing the peace song. I sing it probably, I can't remember, it was more than once. But I could feel in my nervous system, in my back, in my sacrum, I actually, singing this peace song, I actually can feel the energies of my mom, energies of my dad. It's like all of a sudden I was aware because there was a lot of resentment between them. There's some things that happened before my mom died, and then, of course, my dad went through his course of how he passed. So there was like this resentment, very deep resentment between them. And I felt the resentment, but then I also felt like an olive branch opened between them, and they forgave each other while I was singing this song. And I can feel my sacrum as they were forgiving each other and reuniting within me. It was like I can feel my sacrum just relax and unwind. And it was like my whole nervous system just took a great big deep breath and went, you know, I had no idea that tension was there. I had no idea that was happening until it undid itself. Then I realized, wow, that has been influencing me my entire life, you know? So these unresolved pieces that our ancestors carry impact us directly, whether we realize it or not. It's not until things usually get unwound do we realize something was bothering us, that something was hindering our inner peace or hindering our well-being, It's because we're so used to it. It's subliminal. It becomes something that's under our ability to connect with and recognize. So this is the season to really dive into the ancestor work all the way up until the solstice. This is the time to dive deep into the ancestor work, because this is the time of going within. This is the time of finding the light within the darkness. Jackie Hasito's here. So as we journey within, the realms that sorry, I'm hitting my thing. As we journey within, the realms we come in contact first of these unseen realms is the realm of the ancestors. So there's no way to escape it. There's no way to bypass it. There's no way to shortcut through it. It's something that has to be addressed. If we want to liberate ourselves, if we want to free ourselves, empower ourselves, there's no way around it. It is something, and I very rarely say this about anything because I think there's a million ways to skin a cat. This realm is so ripe, full of potential and artistry, but these nesting dolls are nestled in the way that they're nestled. And if we are going to do our personal work and liberate ourselves, this is something that really has to be addressed. When they're at peace, we're at peace. And we'll experience that in our bodies, in our nervous system, and also in our dream time. If we have a lot of disturbance going on in a family level, maybe our family on a ego driver level doesn't care and they just hold resentment and there's no way to resolve it, right? Maybe this is a case. But what you can do is, in the unseen realm, start addressing the ancestral patterns that are behind the current pattern. Okay, you can start calling forward and working with those ancestors that were passing the structure, the architecture down generation to generation that allows for the current family members to be in conflict with each other. This is how you can resolve that part of it. Okay. I know the archons want to believe, they want us to believe that we are powerless to this matrix, but that's what they want us to believe. And that is how they work. That is how they work. That is how they have their power. They paint a picture. We have thoughts and feelings about the picture that they painted. And these thoughts and feelings lead to beliefs. And therefore, we are the ones that lock it into place and create it in the here and now reality. We don't realize that we are the ones doing that. We are telling ourselves that it's these beings that have all this power, but that's a belief that we're invested in. Whether we invest in it through negative feelings or whether we invest in it through positive feelings, it doesn't matter. The fact that we invest in it at all is what gives them that power. And it takes a lot of courage to not buy into it. It takes a lot of courage to not buy into it. because you're not only, going up against a very strong inertia of the collective grids, but you're also going up against the inertia held in place with your ancestors. Okay, it's really strong, and you are subconsciously risking being exiled, which in the past would translate as death. Okay, because in the past you had to survive in tribes, because that's just how you navigate this realm. So when we go against our ancestors, so to speak, right? If we go against the beliefs, the things that are held sacred, the things that are, that are the have tos, we are pretty much challenging a system that often results in exiling people, that translate to death. So it's not a small thing that I'm talking about. This is a big thing. This is a very big piece within our subconscious that keeps us going with the program, even though we know it's a program that we shouldn't be going with. Okay, there's a lot to this. But this is why we do the pieces that we know to do, and the more you do them, they accumulate. So as you start doing your personal work, you start to recognize, what is my ego driver? What is actually the truth? That's the biggest piece. That's the hardest piece, really. What is the voice of your ego driver versus what is the voice of your inner truth? I worked decades to work that one out. It took me a long time. But now that I got it, it's something I treasure, and I'm not ever, 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 ever going to give that up. Right? Ever. Which, makes it challenging if I'm with somebody who wants to go against it. You know what I mean? It's like there's no room for that. So family members, friends that can't accept the different levels of truth that I come to within myself, there's no room for that relationship in my life, because I choose the truth. If I can be in my truth and be in relationship with you, then it's great. But if I'm not allowed to be in my truth when I'm in relationship with you, it's not going to last. You're not even going to be in my outer circle. It's like there's no room. And it's not that you have to buy my truth. You have to be okay with me buying my truth, right? And I doing that, accept and provide space for you to be in your truth. Okay, whatever stage that might be in. This is important, because this is how the freedom we unravel each other and facilitate things for each other. But it takes a really evolved sense of self to be at peace with that, because most people, and this is so disturbing for me, most people don't want the truth. They want validation that their current belief is the truth. And that is one of the biggest poisons of humanity. And this is why spiritual practices don't work for most people, because they want validation that their current belief is what's real, instead of using their spiritual practice to get to the truth here. Okay. And of course, it's because that has been incepted. It's been incepted. There are beings that are desperate and they're pulling out all the stops. They're desperate. They're pulling out all the stops to make sure that we don't wake up. Because once we wake up, they can't commodify our life force energy anymore. So this inception happens on many layers, many nesting doll layers. So waking up is not an easy affair. Waking up is quite dangerous for people. It's pretty much guaranteeing that your life is going to be difficult for a while. Waking up, okay? Waking up is not something that's easy. That's like, think about the whole Matrix movie. And before he took the red pill, his idea was he was going to wake up to the truth and he'll know the truth. But then he woke up to the truth, and that's where his life really began. Right? That's where the real trials and tribulations began. So that's the idea here. It's like waking up to the truth that's not the end of the story. It's really the beginning of the story. And it's the beginning of you reclaiming your energy from this reality, so you can continue to pass through this reality. There's many nesting dolls that create our reality, and one of them is tone, is song. In the past, I talked about it as a soul song. Okay, you're a soul song. And that soul song, the frequency of that gets diverted into a reality, spirals into a reality where where it starts becoming more dense. So after the tone, we know that tone creates shape. So now we have a shape, and we're excited to experiment with this shape. Oh, this light body is interesting. Oh, look at this, look at that. And then we go even further into density. And then it's like, oh, okay, there's experiences to be had in all these other forms. I can be a cat, I can be a planet, I can be a person, I could be, you know what I mean? You can have all these different forms, and this is really interesting. And the curiosity just keeps us going deeper, 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 deeper into density, until we reach this point we completely forget that we were simply a wave, a sound wave, completely free, moving through the cosmos. And this reality is such that you can wake up to that reality of being that sound wave moving through the cosmos. But then what? Right? Now you got to start reclaiming all these parts of you that have spiraled into this density. You need to pull it all back out. Pull it all back out, and then you can return back to being that beautiful sound wave again, exploring the cosmos. You see? The thing is that, we're not always congruent with that. And that's why our soul is facilitating these experiences. We have these experiences that anchor us in, and we can't unanchor ourselves with the lack of awareness. Our consciousness, especially these days, is so potent. Just being aware of something actually starts to unravel it. And that's why all these experiences are coming. That's why our soul has this trajectory planned out with this experience and that experience, so we can really, truly be aware, have the experience, and then we're done. Done. The energy's not invested in the matrix anymore, that part of the matrix anymore. Done. Check. Keep moving. And we have many lifetimes of accumulated experiences that we need to experience in this one lifetime to unravel ourselves in a single incarnational experience. That's why it's so intense. That's why it's so intense. But here's the deal. The choice has been made already. The word has already been spoken. It's not up to you and your ego driver. It's not up to me and my ego driver. We are on this wild ride. We are on this wild ride to have all this, to go through all these experiences so we can unravel ourselves and be free again. And that might trigger some helplessness, but when we can be aware of the bigger picture and the individual picture at the same time, then we can be liberated from the dogmas of all these other infiltrations and truly walk a path of liberation in a way that's joyful, in a way that we're grateful that we get to have the experience of recognizing what's going on, of what we're doing. It's not this trap. The medicine is in the poison once you're awake to these levels. Hello, dear Sister Rita. Good to see you. Happy Thankful Day. So we're getting together. We're celebrating an age-old tradition. There's lots of stories about this tradition. You can resonate with whatever you want. Doesn't matter really. But do know that there is a way to experience family. There's a way to experience these traditions that bring you to a realization for liberation. If you approach everything with that attitude, you're going to reclaim yourself. You're going to embrace your freedom, and you're not going to, that much more of you is freed up from these matrices. Okay? Having a really strong aversion means you're invested in a frequency. You're invested in a matrix. A really strong attachment in a positive way, equally as invested, equally as giving your energy away. So if we spend these moments, whether they're adverse or not, to reclaim our energies, we are approaching this reality with an empowered point of view. If we experience death and dying as a massive opportunity to liberate that person from all the burdens they've carried in their life, right? That contributes to our personal liberation. Okay, we choose to bring that to the scenario. Our culture is not. Our culture is completely infiltrated. We can have a different perspective and bring that too, right? There's nothing stopping us. We can bring compassion and forgiveness to our beloveds. There's nothing stopping us besides our own personal stories. So this additional perspective that I'm weaving in here for you guys is, this is a liberating perspective on so many levels. Forgiveness is not for other people, it's for you. It's for your energy to get liberated from this matrix. It's for you to be at peace. Okay? So we can use this journey towards the solstice to go deeper and deeper inside of ourselves. Okay? And liberate the unresolved issues of our ancestors from within us. We can do that. All right, here, dear Sister Rita has a contribution to make. She says, my past life as a pilgrim, I pushed to include the Native Americans. Another person I know also pushed to include them. Okay. Do you know what kind of pilgrim you were? I'm trying to remember who the original settlers were that started with the Thanksgiving tradition. I don't think it was the Puritans. I think it was a different sect. I'm curious, Rita, if you can share that. Yeah, unification. See, here's the thing. So there's this divide among cultures. There's this divide among races, indigenous versus colonizers, right? That is held in place by our ancestors. That is held in place. As we resolve these things, whether through death rites or other means, we are that much closer to reunifying the divides of the races and realizing that we are all contributing to this dream together. We are all bringing something of value. Our DNA dance is bringing something of value into this reality. And then we can come together again and rejoice in our connection through our differences. Okay? And actually, this is part of what the white race does, is celebrate other cultures. Now, of course, this was all distorted over, through the matrix in different ways. But we enjoy other people's cultures. We enjoy all cultures. I mean, I love, love, love exploring other people's traditions. Not because I'm absent inside of myself, though there is that within the Western culture, but I really love learning about these different traditions and why they're there and what they look like and the stories of, the stories of the different people. There's something that is fascinating about that for me. Not all cultures are, not all DNA dances are suited for that sort of thing. There's a beautiful story, and I've shared this before, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it went. It was dear Sister Una. She's a Celtic medicine woman trained by a shaman from Greenland, a true shaman from Greenland. And that training had a lot to do with being in silence. So when you're on the ice, when you're on the tundra, it's like a desert, but it's ice, right? And there's a lot of lessons that come through in the silence. And she shared these beautiful stories because she started connecting with many different cultural masters, And one of the stories, and I think this may come from the Maori in New Zealand. I could be wrong, But the story was the coming of the different races. And it started off with the yellow people. The yellow people, when the sun first starts to dawn, it's yellow. And there comes the yellow people. And they were loud truck. They were responsible for being the caretakers of the elemental realm. And they did not do a good job. Instead, they exploited the elemental realm. And then as the sun gets higher in the sky, it becomes white. And then comes the white people. And the white people were to connect with all the different cultures in this realm. But they too didn't do a good job. They used this trait to dominate, to colonize. Okay. And then as the sun gets lower in the sky, you have, and towards sunset, then you have the red people. And the red people were here to bring the gift of making peace. And they also did not do a good job. They made war with each other. They made war with other cultures. And then after the sun sets, you have the black-skinned people. And they were to be the protectors. They were to keep the people safe. So no one had to lock their doors at night. But they too failed at this. And nighttime became a place where a lot of dangers lurked, and we had to be very careful. So it's this beautiful story. The reason why I like it so much is because every single race has its role that's harmonic with reality. And it becomes apparent how each race has failed at that, and the kind of disharmony and disruption it creates within the race, within the culture, but also cross-culturally. You know, we have the story of the Chinese, doing their thing. Then we have the story of the white people colonizing, doing their thing. And then we have the story of the red people, doing their thing. It's like, and then you have the story of the black people that's doing their thing. Each single one of them have a narrative on what's wrong in their reality, what's wrong in life. Okay, how the perpetrators have impacted them. And the white people aren't just, the colonizers are not the only perpetrators. There's vast perpetrators. Okay, so and what's important is for us, the story is really important so we understand the depth of which we're unraveling things and what it starts to look like when we're stepping into our truth. When we're stepping into the truth, the true DNA dance that's in harmony with nature, with life, the red people become the peacemakers, the black people become the protectors, the yellow people become part of the proper caretakers, the white people become the ones that explore and connect cultures. You know what I mean? There's an expression that really serves to enhance and enrich other beings of this realm. It's not just that, one is the poison. Yes, there are terrible things that happen across the board, but that's not the only story. That's not the only potential. Every single being has their place, but we have to be able to bring forgiveness and resolution and unwind all of that energy that's invested in these false matrices. These matrices that perpetuate the experience of helplessness, that perpetuate the experience of lack of empowerment to live the true life that you're here to live. Okay, so Rita is echoing this thought about it's about overcoming the opposition to unify. And here it is. This is right back where we began, right? So as we work with the ancestral stuff, bringing in the forgiveness, the compassion, and we start weaving in the power of the death rites into these pieces, we liberate ourselves from generations, many, many, many generations of investment in these matrices that create, that hold each other as enemies, that hold these divides. If you go into nature and experience nature as it is, you know, the oak tree is not in battle with the maple, right? There's not a battlement going on. There is a deeply woven web of synergistic nature. All these beings' existences contribute into the overall harmony of nature. Every being has their role. I mean, I'm going to say even the insects, if we don't realize that, you know, the insects have a huge role in the health of the trees, you know. I was at a beautiful, beautiful place in Montana, and the trees did not look well. You know, there was a thing going on with the trees. They looked like they were really struggling. And then we noticed that the people, the keepers of the ground, sprayed for bugs, you know, and that happened to be with someone who really knew a lot about the trees and the connection of things. And they made the comment that, you know, it's the lack of the life of the bugs. It's all that the chemically killing the bugs that is affecting the health of these trees. Everything is connected. You can't get rid of one force of nature without it impacting another part of nature. So you can't get rid of one people's because it'll affect everybody else. Okay. You can't wipe out, for example, the Palestinians without it impacting the Israelis. You can't take out one without impacting the other. It's just, that's not how this reality operates. And it's the inception to these realities that tell us that this is something that's doable, but it's not. We are all deeply, deeply, deeply connected. To take any major component of nature out of this matrix, the natural matrix, is to impact the entire matrix. There's no way around that. These incepted realities tell us that we have control and that we can do this, but we can't. The war that's happening on the other side of the world is impacting every single person on this planet, whether they recognize it or not. These injustices that happen between peoples impact everybody. It impacts the dream realms. It impacts the song lines. It impacts the flow of life in every way. The birth of a new species into this reality impacts everybody. You know, butterflies on the other side of the world have an impact on the people somewhere very far away. It seems like, how can that be possible? It's just this little tiny butterfly. But it's not just this little tiny butterfly. So your family strife that happened between sisters and brothers a generation ago impacts everybody in your family right now. It impacts your children. It impacts your children's children. Your toxic relationship with your parents. Sure, you might not talk, but that impacts your children, your grandchildren. You see, we need to understand that we're all in this together. We're deeply, deeply, deeply woven together. Okay? Stars exploding on the other side of the galaxy impact us in the here and now, even though science tells us that's like 100,000 light years away. Consciousness travels faster than the speed of light. It impacts us in the here and now. So the more we reclaim our reality and our responsibility of how we show up to it, the more liberated we become, and the more likely for liberation to happen for all of life around us. And I don't know about you, but my personal liberation is something I'm deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for. All the work that has happened, everything that's ever happened in my life, the good, the bad, the ugly, I've been able to develop a relationship to it that liberates me, that gives me more clarity, that gives me more strength. And that is priceless. It's priceless, people. Absolutely priceless. And I'm deeply grateful for that. Oh boy. So this hour is up. It passes by so fast. If you guys are interested in cultivating this capacity, this relationship with that inner truth compass, so you can really start or enhance or accelerate your path of walking towards liberation for yourself, I encourage you guys to check out our Light Body Essentials program. It is, you can find that at lightbodyacademy.com, Light Body Essentials. This is 3 meetings a month, where the first meeting is all about the practices to reclaim your energy field, get control and command of your frequency. It's really great for empaths to become empowered with their abilities versus, their abilities being a burden. And then, of course, there's after that, there's quantum activation that happens every month. And then after that, it's a real fun thing where there's group energy tracking clinic, where you learn about tracking energy as a group. And that is our newest addition to the program, and it's a lot of fun. People are getting a lot of great feedback about that. So I encourage you guys to check out the Light Body Essentials program at lightbodyacademy.com. All right, darlings, that's it for me. Mwah. Thank you so much for being here. We will catch you next time. Bye-bye.